refugee issues. The Council of Governors. And as we had these discussions with our focal person at the Council of Governors, we felt it is very important that refugee matters are not just discussed amongst Garissa and Turkana County, but also it needs to be a national government discussion. Together with the development partners today, I feel that this room has the key stakeholders who need to have this discussion. Today we look at how we are going to discuss about equality, social, economic development for both the host and the displaced communities. So we have an opportunity to explore and strategize on how we can take up and consider county governments and ensure they are promoting inclusion, social justice, and protection for displaced populations. A very important conversation to have with the local governments, in this case county governments, and also municipal governments that are present here today. We get an opportunity to discuss and reflect on the challenges that are facing both the national government, the county government, and sometimes we think that development partners are not facing this challenge. We are also facing the challenge when it comes to migration. And so it only makes emphasis on how we really need to collaborate as you look at the theme of this side event in terms of strengthening our collaboration as partners when it comes to migration. So lastly, we get an opportunity to identify collaborative strategies that promote good governance and enhance service deliveries by national government and county governments. But also, in one way or another, development matters partners will always come in to complement the work of the county and national governments. So as we work together to discuss on how we can strengthen intergovernmental partnerships for inclusive development for refugees and host communities, it is important to appreciate that and recognize that there are strides that have been made in refugee management by the national government and the county governments and development partners. And the discussion today in this Devolution conference across the thematic areas, and by that I mean that it is not only this thematic area on social justice and human rights and social justice, but across all these thematic areas in this Devolution conference, all the 3 days actually touch on migration and good governance. And so we really need to be cognizant about that within county governments and the devolution structure, migration is a key component to discuss. There are emphasis on importance of collaboration, approaches to ensure seamless transition in the refugee management. And that is something that has to come out very clearly today, that we really want to see this transition and make sure that it's seamless. We want to see that what we are discussing when it comes to refugee management and migration and integration and transition is seamless. I am happy to welcome all of you to this discussion. I really hope that it's going to be a very fruitful discussion, a discussion that is going to bear fruits at the end of the day, the discussion that will bring all partners together to collaborate for a very good cause, that is migration and refugee management in the country. As I conclude, I don't want to finish without recognizing our partners who we've worked with as VNG, who really, when we started discussing this, were very open, and I appreciated the relevance of these side events and the importance of it. They took this as a worthy cause, because I think this is the first time refugee issues is being discussed in a devolution conference for the 8th or this is the 9th devolution conference, and we've not had that before. And we only feel that this is the beginning of a new chapter, especially with the COG. We plan to continue with this work together with them. Want to make sure that refugee issues are discussed by the Council of Governors, by all the 47 governors when it comes to good governance, service delivery, and inclusion. I recognize REDS. Patience Kiara is here. Patience is the regional director of REDS. Thank you so much for accepting the call and accepting to work with us. Refugee Consortium of Kenya, we have Bharat, the executive director, present. We appreciate the efforts made towards this cause. Oxfam are not present today, but they really played an important role when we were planning for this. In Komoko, we have Teresia Wakahia. She's the program director of In Komoko in Kenya. We appreciate your efforts. Pamoja Trust, Executive Director Sam Orlando. Thank you so much for the efforts made towards this preparation. The Red Cross of Kenya, we appreciate your efforts too. RCK, the regional lead, Jean-Marie Ishimo is here. Thank you so much for also bringing all the RLOs together here today. And yeah, so we also appreciate the county governments that we've been working with, especially Garissa and Turkana for VNG. They have availed themselves today, and all the representation here today. We do not take it for granted, and I really hope that we will have a very fruitful discussion. Karibuni sana. So we will go right into the program, and we will start with remarks. The first remarks will be given by Ms. Caroline Van Buren, the UNHCR Kenya representative. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much. Excellency, Deputy Governor of Turkana, Speaker of County Assembly of Garissa County, the Commissioner for Refugee Affairs, Ms. Mercy Mwasaru, refugees, refugee-led organizations, all delegates present, their participants, good morning. Good morning. Allow me to begin by thanking the organizers of this site event, together with the Council of Governors, for convening this timely and opportune conversation. This year's Devolution Conference invites us to put equity, inclusion, and social justice at the center of service delivery, re-engineering county governments to accelerate development and close socio-economic gaps. This is precisely the conversation we should have about refugee hosting and inclusion. It's my pleasure to be part of this site event themed Strengthening Intergovernmental Partnership for Inclusive Development for Refugees and Host Communities. Today's event underscores the central significance of collaboration and partnership between the various actors. Government, both at national and county level, development partners, civil society organizations, and the persons we serve, refugees, and the communities that host them. In March this year, Kenya launched the Sharika Plan, an inventive and progressive government-led framework to shift from parallel humanitarian systems towards inclusion, self-reliance, and shared prosperity in refugee hosting areas. At that launch, various speakers emphasized three core principles: inclusion of refugees with equal support to host communities, a whole of government and whole of society approach, and the central role of counties and municipalities in translating policy into services and opportunities. These principles are core in guiding the collaboration and partnership of all the stakeholders in delivery of services to refugees and the host communities. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to note that launching the Sharika Plan is not the end of the process. It's the start of the implementation. I therefore call upon all of us to maintain the momentum generated by the successful launch of the plan and move purposefully and collectively into delivery. I would like to reiterate UNHCR's commitment and assurance to continue playing our role of supporting the government both at the national and at the county level to fulfill the objectives of the Sharika Plan. For today's discussion, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to note 3 points. First, across the humanitarian and development landscape, budgets are shrinking. It's therefore incumbent upon all of us as stakeholders to adopt inclusive and sustainable approaches to optimize service delivery to the persons that we serve, therefore shifting away from parallel service delivery and strengthening government systems is the right way to go. It is the most efficient and effective thing to do, and it's the way forward. For instance, in health and education, integrating refugee facilities into government systems will improve equity, quality, and oversight while further reducing duplication and ensuring prudent use of resources. I also encourage financial and digital inclusion, which will enable refugees to fully participate in business, hence unlocking household self-reliance and invigorating local economies, aligning with the county's economic agenda. To achieve this objective, I call upon the development banks, bilateral partners, and the private sector to continue investing in the refugee hosting areas because inclusion stabilizes communities and contributes to national and regional security. Second, in today's discussion, I would like to call upon all the stakeholders to keep the momentum. While we continue to manage and navigate day-to-day challenges, we need to continue working collaboratively to realize the Government of Kenya's vision of the Sharika Plan. As UNHCR, we stand ready to continue playing our critical role as a key enabler in each step and phase of the plan. Ladies and gentlemen, third, I would like to recap that effective coordination between refugee hosting counties, national entities, and all the stakeholders is very key for efficient delivery of services and development. Therefore, a whole of government approach, whole of partner, and whole of society approach will only be realized if there is a pivotal axis that coordinates all the stakeholders together. Consequently, a well-structured and inclusive coordination mechanism needs to be at the core of today's discussion, as this is the spirit of the site event and of the overall Devolution conference call to translate high-level commitments into practical actions that bridge divides. As I conclude, allow me to restate that together, if we maintain the momentum, align our efforts, and invest wisely in the systems at national and county level, we will move decisively from protracted humanitarian responses to meaningful, dignified, and sustainable solutions for refugees and the communities hosting them. Thank you. I wish you a fruitful and productive day today. Asante sana. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would also like to recognize a partner that I missed, International Rescue Committee. The Deputy Country Director, Ms. Irene Bosire, is also present. Yes. I would also like to welcome the next speaker to give his remarks, Mr. Henrik Lassen. He's the Head of Cooperation and Team Leader in the Governance and Health Team of the Danish Embassy in Kenya.
Good morning. Yes, I am a representative of the Embassy of Denmark, but in this occasion, I'm actually representing the international partners of the Refugee Donor Group. So I'm speaking on behalf of many of the partners to Kenya in this important endeavor. So Commissioner and Deputy Governors, UN and other diplomatic colleagues, and all the important organizations that are here for the agenda we are discussing. And other than that, I will write on the protocol already observed. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here on behalf of the international partners of the Refugee Donor Group. It's only proper to start out by commending Kenya as a refugee hosting country and for continuing to host over 850,000 refugees and provide an open, safe asylum space for the region. This is not only commendable, it's a huge responsibility, and solutions need to be a joint responsibility. I would like to highlight just 3 points for this introduction. Firstly, we need to keep our focus on long-term sustainability. The funding landscape, as Caroline has also just mentioned, is shifting globally with fewer resources available for humanitarian responses. We recognize the needs of refugees and asylum-seeking people in the region, that they are far outpacing the availability of donor funding under the current model. New approaches are unavoidable. The Kenya government's Shirika plan and its ambition of enhancing self-reliance for refugees and host communities is therefore more important than ever. In the spirit of burden and responsibility sharing, both the international community and the government of Kenya will need to invest in the Shirika plan now and in the long term. Secondly, the priority needs, and I'm sorry I'm repeating some of Caroline's points, but really needs to be on Shirika implementation. We welcome the Kenyan government prioritizing the implementation of the Shirika plan. It's needed now more than ever to ensure refugee self-reliance and sustainability of service delivery through government-led structures. We would like to emphasize the importance of concrete progress on developing the implementation matrix, and that the budget is pursued to not lose momentum. Concrete activities need to be outlined, realistic budget estimates need to be developed, and steps and timing for implementation will need to be sketched out in more detail. And that includes the specific roles and investment requirements for all levels of the government. The first pillar of the Shirika plan is rightly focused on enacting legal and policy reforms, which will enable the refugee and host community self-reliance. We encourage reforms to allow refugees greater financial integration, including access to banking and the right to register their business and business property. Considering the freedom of movement for integrated refugees would also be important in facilitating refugee self-reliance. The third point is really to underline the strengthened cooperation and engagement with county governments. And I guess that's also why we are here today, and why this is the first time that we actually have this on at the Devolution conference. The Shirika plan represents an opportunity to align national and county level efforts in refugee management. Strengthening coordination structures is essential to ensure that refugee and host community needs are addressed in complementary and sustainable ways. Embedding Shirika at the local level, including by building on existing local frameworks, is key. That both goes for the KISIDEP and the GISIDEP. County governments are at the forefront of service delivery for refugees and host communities. The success of the Shirika plan hinges on empowering communities to lead implementation efforts supported by national government and international partners. Successful implementation of the Shirika plan will require strong local ownership and meaningful engagement with all relevant stakeholders, including county governments, national authorities, UN partners, civil society organizations, private sector, and national and also, of course, the refugees and the local host communities. It will also be important to pursue close coordination between all partners to reduce duplication and inefficient use of funds, as well as to prioritize investment in key enablers, activities that can unlock progress across the pillars of the Eureka plan. The international partners, we call for greater prioritization, enhanced efficiencies, and identifying the greatest needs. This session provides a critical platform to bring together national and county governments, international agencies, civil society and private sector actors to build alliances and strengthen partnerships. In closing, on behalf of the partners, we wish to assure the government of Kenya our unwavering commitment to continue working alongside them in realizing the full potential of the Eureka plan. Our collective efforts through increased coordination, technical support, and funding will help ensure that the plan delivers lasting benefits for refugees and host communities, leading to sustainable solutions. We encourage continued dialogue with the refugee donor group on implementation of the Eureka plan. By working collaboratively, we can ensure that the transition away from humanitarian aid to refugee and host community self-reliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We're happy that the donor group was represented. I would like to now invite His Excellency, Dr. John Erus, to give remarks on behalf of the county government. I stand guided. Protocol dictates that His Excellency cannot come, the Speaker cannot come before His Excellency. So I accept that guidance and I invite Honorable Idle Ngure to come and give remarks.
Thank you, Kidakwa, for accepting our guidance. As a house of rules that I lead, we are dictated by protocol. Therefore, it was improper for me to talk after my boss, who is the deputy governor, representing the governor. Thank you. I am Honorable Abdi Idlegure, the Speaker of Garissa County Assembly. I stand on the established protocol. Good morning. I convey apologies first from my governor, Nadif Jama, who could not be here today with us due to other competing demands on his time, while the separation of powers means that I do not speak for him. I speak for Garissa County in general, representing both the aspirations of our people and the legislative mandate of the County Assembly. On behalf of Garissa County, I thank the organizers and the partners for convening this important dialogue. It is a privilege to join this side event of the Devolution Conference 2025 on strengthening intergovernmental partnership for inclusive development for refugees and host communities. For decades, Garissa has hosted one of the largest refugee populations, a reality that has shaped our destiny, identity, brought human capital and diversity, but also strained our infrastructure and public services. These pressures are compounded by historical marginalization and fluctuating donor support. The Sharika Plan, launched on the 28th of March 2025, is a milestone, shifting from aid dependency to a development-driven approach. We are committed to integrating it into our County Integrated Development Plan, CIDP, so that local priorities drive implementation. Service reach both refugees and host communities, and the Assembly provides strong oversight. While the Refugee Act of 2021 recognizes counties' roles, coordination with national government remains uneven. Garissa is working to strengthen multi-level governance through structured engagement, aligned priorities and policies, and shared resources, ensuring national strategies match local realities. Locally led solutions are central. Recently, the County Assembly amended its standing orders under my leadership to allow refugees to petition us directly. A historic step ensuring that the refugee voices shape policy and action. We are also building partnership with both hosting and non-hosting counties to present a united front for resources, reforms, and sustainable solutions. Our guiding principles are very clear: human rights, social justice, and inclusion. Development must be equitable, giving both refugees and host communities equal access to services, opportunities, and dignity. I'm confident today's dialogue will bring stronger policy alignment, better coordination, and more inclusive outcomes. In Garissa, we stand ready to work with all partners so that no community, refugees, and host alike is left behind. My closing remarks. Stronger policy convergence between national and county government is key for inclusive development. The Sharika Plan is an opportunity embedded in refugee response into mainstream governance, ensuring that both host and refugee communities can thrive together. The challenge is to move from policy statements to tangible actions. With adequate resource, clear mandates, and shared accountability, we are able to make it. Thank you. Now it's my single honor and duty to welcome the Deputy Governor of Turkana, Dr. Erus.
Good morning. First of all, I want to recognize the Speaker of Turkana County Assembly, Honorable James Lokiato. And I also want to recognize the team from Turkana. Can you please be upstanding for... Thank you. I want to respect to the protocols that have already been established for the sake of time. And I'm going to make very brief remarks. First and foremost, we are grateful as the Turkana County government and very proud of hosting refugees for over 30 years. Turkana sits in a very fragile ecosystem, and it is also geopolitically located within 3 countries, that is Uganda, Southern Sudan, and Ethiopia. And the current statistics or information from the Kakuma refugee camp manager indicates that there are about 150 to 200 new arrivals every day. And that is on top of 4,000, approximately 400,000 refugees in Turkana. Turkana for a long time saw the establishment of the Kakuma refugee camp as an opportunity for them as well as the refugees. And so for 30 years, as the Turkana County people, the host community, we have sacrificed a lot as the community in ensuring that the refugees are integrated in our system. And that sacrifice is a pride that we stand as Turkana people and as Turkana County government. And I want to recognize the collaboration we have with UNHCR and other development partners, including the Refugee Donor Group, for clearly supporting the efforts of the Turkana County government to integrate service delivery into our CIDP. Kakuma Kalobea Integrated Social Development Plan 1 and 2 is the foundation for which Sherika Plan was built. And we are very proud as Turkana to have created a framework through the efforts of government, national government, to have the integration process be a possibility. As we navigate the new plan, we are very aware that as the Turkana County government, we have already provided the necessary framework and also integrated some of those services in county government integrated development plan. A lot of work needs to be done, as the other speakers have mentioned. Sherika plan requires immediate implementation. And that implementation is also requires national dialogue, and institutions of governance, including houses of parliaments, are critical in terms of trying to align the Refugee Act 2021 Sherika plan and anchor it into structures and institutions of governance. As we discussed today about the partnerships between governments, development partners, we are also very concerned about issues that face us every day. We know the shrinking funding and also the window of resettling refugees outside the country is also closing down. We recognize this fact. We know that majority of the young people in the refugee camps were either born in Kakuma or born in Garissa. As a country, we need to find a solution on how does the process of registering them and also coming up with a clear framework on a durable solution on how to integrate them. We have not also had an opportunity to discuss what integration really means. We keep on talking about integration. Are we talking about integrated services that we are already doing? Are we talking about a framework that allows distribution of the refugees across the country? And who is best suited in terms of playing that role in terms of coordination? And I agree with the speakers. But as we also discussed this, this is appeal to the Ministry of Interior and also UNHCR, that as we continue to embrace the spirit of developing the infrastructure for socio-economic development of the refugees and the local community, the prima facie clause, we need to also to have clear discussions on how we move forward with that process, because it is very critical to us, and we want and we envision Sherika plan as more beneficial than conflictual. And as we think about that journey, we also want to see how the global challenges and the funding cuts are handled and discussed at the level where both levels of government and the refugee groups and the development partners and private sector can provide solutions that enables that process to go forward. Otherwise, as on behalf of the Turkana County government, we are highly committed in supporting the efforts of implementation of the Sherika plan, and we have already gone ahead to provide subsidized licenses. We have worked with IFC, represented by Felix here, to make sure that the refugee businesses that we have already issued licenses are de-risked. And that is very key to us. And we have allowed the refugees to be in all our schools. And we are very proud as the county government and will continue to build the infrastructure that provides durable solution to the refugee management. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Your Excellency and Honorable Speaker. We will move on to the next item on our program. I would like to invite Commissioner Mercy Masweru to deliver the keynote speech, and she will also highlight areas that for the person she is representing. Karibu sana, Commissioner.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be delivering the keynote speech on behalf of the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and National Government, who was supposed to be here with us, but due to exigencies of work, something cropped up late yesterday, so he's unable to be with us. So allow me to read his message so that we can proceed to the next agenda. He acknowledges the presence of the Deputy Governor for Turkana County, His Excellency John Erus. We are also joined by His Excellency Eduardo, Deputy Ambassador for Mozambique. I think he's seated somewhere with us. Oh, yes. We have Mr. Mark Laren, Head of Cooperation, Danish Embassy in Kenya. UNHCR Country Representative, Ms. Caroline Van Buren. Honorable Abdi Edile, Speaker of Garissa County. Honorable Charles Lokioto, Speaker for Turkana County. Representatives of the donors, National Non-Governmental Organization. We have some academia among us, development partners, and our friends who are also refugees in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm delighted to join you today at this very important forum on an issue that strikes the very heart of our collective responsibility, strengthening intergovernmental partnerships for refugees and host communities. This comes at a time when the refugee space continuously metamorphoses, with climate refugees and onward movements contributing to continuous influxes. Our refugee population currently stands at over 858,000 present, with the demographics of the youth, women, and children to comprise the majority. These being vulnerable groups, it calls for care and attention. The tenets of 1951 UN Convention on Refugees underpins the principles of non-discrimination, non-penalization, and non-refoulement, a duty that Kenya has undertaken and continues to discharge for over 35 years now. We continue to hold on to our obligations internationally and at the regional level. As a country, we face a myriad of challenges, including a protracted refugee situation coupled with continuous influx, overstretched resources with reception centers being overcrowded and inhabitable, funding cuts with reduction in food rations, overflow of conflict from countries of origin into refugee camps and settlements, and environmental degradation, infiltration by human traffickers and smugglers, just to highlight a few challenges we are facing. It has therefore become imperative to move beyond short-term solutions towards long-term sustainable alternatives, to consolidate and enhance socio-economic integration as a vision in the Refugee Act of 2021 and strengthening access to education, water, sanitation, and hygiene, jobs and livelihoods, healthcare, housing, financial inclusion, and human capital environment. Kenya has come up with a comprehensive strategy called the Shirika Plan, which was launched on 28th of March 2025 by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya. Challenges affecting refugees and host communities often span borders, involve multiple sectors, and demand significant resources. Addressing them effectively thus requires more than efforts of the national government, strengthening partnerships between national and county governments and regional bodies, foster better coordination, shared resources, and sustainable solutions that serve the needs of both refugees and the host communities. Ladies and gentlemen, in recent years, we have seen inspiring examples of what is possible when different levels of government and partners act with a common goal. The national government has worked hand in hand with the counties to integrate refugees into county development plans. Kalobei's socio-economic development plan in Turkana, which is in phase 2, and Garissa socio-economic development plan, which is in its initial phase. Other counties hosting refugees, such as Nairobi, have also come in with strategies to respond to the need of these populations. As you are aware, efforts to widen the resource envelope between humanitarian aid has been slow as donor fatigue, earmarking of funds continue to limit our refugee operation. The time is ripe to take decisive steps and leadership beyond conducting small-scale pilot projects to achieve impact at scale by offering adaptable, market-driven solutions to those who are most marginalized. The time is here for development-oriented responses that leave no one behind. There is no better time for the need to enhance collaboration between the two levels of government, that is the national and county governments, across the different sectors. Our success depends on our ability to work together through strong, structured, and sustained partnership. It is important to note that several key actions need to be looked by all to ensure successful, sustainable development, focused solutions, and they include: 1, enhancing legal and policy frameworks across each sector, including financial inclusion, in which the government is keenly working to ensure it takes place. 2, structured coordination mechanisms that bring together national, county, and other actors of goodwill, including joint planning forums, clear communication channels, and robust data sharing systems. 3, need to formalize our partnerships through framework agreements and protocols that clearly define roles and responsibility of each entity. 4, we must integrate refugee needs into the broader development agenda. It is high time we see refugees as a resource that can be tapped into to build local economies. And lastly, we must invest in capacity building for government officials at all levels for them to effectively take lead. In conclusion, I wish to extend sincere gratitude to the Council of Governors and the Consortium of NGOs that have brought us all together through this organized forum. This forum will provide an opportunity for us stakeholders to share ideas and experiences on how to better our collaborations and effectively meet the needs of the population that we serve. It is our obligation to ensure that as refugees and host communities alike look to the future with hope, dignity, and opportunity, that we lay the foundation for more inclusive, resilient, and prosperous societies for all. I call on all of us, donors, development partners, UN agencies, NGOs, private sector, to support the government, that is both the national and county governments, in implementing the transformation agenda of socio-economic inclusion for refugees and host communities by investing in refugees programs and refugee hosting areas. Finally, I thank the county governments for their unwavering support and commitment for over 3 decades in hosting and providing services to refugees. Together, let us be for the people, for prosperity, and make devolution a catalyst for equity, inclusion, and social justice. Thank you, erokamano, asanteni sana.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to recognize the presence and appreciate the presence of Governor Stephen Sang. Governor is the Governor of Nandi County and the Chief Whip of the Council of Governors. Karibu sana. And as we speak to intergovernmental relationship, we also have the presence of Mr. Kithinji. He is the chairman of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. Thank you so much for your presence. We now move to the next session, where I would like to invite Jared to make his presentation and share more about this engagement that we're having. I think the remarks that we've received have really shed light on the purpose of this meeting today, and also gives us an indication of the representation that we have today in the room. Karibu, Jared.
Thank you, Grania. My tech team up there, I'll be having eye glances at you every now and again as you help me with the slides. Distinguished guests, partners, colleagues, and friends in the room, good morning. It is a privilege to be here today in County 043, as we are used to saying the county of endless potential. I'm very passionate about it because this is my home county. Majority of you, we've interacted mostly in Nairobi. So maybe on my own behalf, let me take the opportunity to welcome you to Homa Bay County. My name is Aol Jared, and I'm here on behalf of Samuel Hall. We are a local organization based in Nairobi, dedicated to conducting research and program evaluation in the context of migration and displacement. In my presentation, I will address the ongoing transition in refugee management in Kenya with a particular focus on the critical role of collaborative engagement between national and county governments in implementing the Shirika Plan. This discussion, to me, goes beyond policy. It concerns managing a very complex transition that impacts hundreds of thousands of lives and shapes the developmental trajectory in the entire country. Give me the next slide, kindly, tech team. Kenya currently hosts more than 800,000 registered refugees and asylum seekers, with the vast majority of them living in Turkana and Garissa counties, as you've already heard. This number continues to grow. At the same time, the Kenya system of devolution represents a major shift in how governance is structured. We've heard about movement of, or rather moving power and resources closer to the people. We've already been pretty much aware of how it is structured to address historical marginalization, how it should promote inclusivity, increase citizen participation, improve transparency, and above all, drive socioeconomic development at the local level. The Shirika Plan that we've all heard mentioned by previous speakers builds on this vision. It aims to move us from a camp-based humanitarian model to an integrated, settlement-based development approach. Its objectives, as we already know, are anchored in the Refugees Act 2021, by extension, the Urban Areas and Cities Act, and the National Urban Development Policy, and aligns with the Constitution's mandate for cooperation between national and county government. But again, as we know, it is not new. This transition is complicated by policy tensions. For example, the Refugees Act and its regulations still hinge on quote-unquote designated areas, meaning movement and residence remain subject to authorizations. Counties can plan and invest for inclusion, but refugee mobility is still administratively constrained, making the goal of normal municipal life harder to achieve. In my next slide, I'd like to state that this discussion is not starting today. In 2015, Samuel Hall conducted a study on devolution in Kenya, which was later updated under the leadership of Reds in 2023. I'm looking at Patience here because she's pretty much aware of the details in that. And it revealed that refugee affairs were managed almost entirely at the national level, with hosting counties excluded from planning and budgeting. Humanitarian agencies are still filling service gaps that local systems cannot address. Fast forward to today, the discussion has advanced. We are now talking about area-based development frameworks, as we've heard from the Deputy Governor and the Speaker rightly mentioned, KISEDEP and GISEDEP. We also know that in the recent discussions, we are again talking about the Nairobi County Refugee Integrated and Community Building Strategy. Then, generally, we already know that the Refugee Act 2021 has been enacted, the Shirika Plan has been endorsed, and there is a shift toward locally led and locally owned solutions. Yet, as we discuss that, or as we highlight that, several gaps remain. Coordination is still ad hoc. Refugees are often excluded from population baselines. The definition of designated areas remains unclear, as rightfully mentioned by the Honorable Deputy Governor. And a number of people are asking questions. Are we talking about integration? We talk about integration. Are we talking about access to land, job opportunities? And what do we mean? We are also having awareness issues around the Shirika Plan, which is pretty much low at the moment. We see practical and legal barriers, such as refugee IDs being gazetted as valid for state services, but not consistently accepted at the front line, which means it slows health insurance enrollment, business licensing, job placement, and other service uptake. Now, in my next slide again, I'll keep mentioning that so that I give a cue on the other end. It brings me to the heart of today's conversation, which is collaboration. Please, next slide, thank you. The Shirika Plan requires the alignment of two constitutionally distinct but deeply interdependent levels of government. On one side, the national government is responsible for refugee policy and legislation, trust determination, immigration control, and resource mobilization through the national treasury and international partnerships. On the other side, county governments are responsible for service delivery from health and early childhood, education to water, sanitation, local roads, urban services, and urban planning. But here lies another structural challenge. There is no permanent, predictable, formula-based allocation to refugee hosting counties tied to refugee population pressures. Counties have carried evolved function for mixed populations without an explicit intergovernmental financing rule under the PFM Act, relying instead on ad hoc allocations. Without strong alignment on both mandates and money flows, we risk fragmentation instead of a unified approach. Recent consultations through two of our past research projects confirm that both hosts and refugee communities broadly support the Shirika Plan objectives. But they also reveal something very much important for this discussion today. There is uncertainty about what integration truly means. Like I've said, to some people they're asking the question, does it mean mobility rights? Or does it mean access to land? Or does it expand economic opportunities? So I agree that even as we move forward, there is a need for a very intentional discussion of what we mean by integration. These are not abstract questions or statements. Converting camps into municipalities requires clear, lawful pathways for land status, zoning, and service waivers, particularly where community land is involved. At present, the framework that we have requires painstaking case-by-case procedures under the Community Land Act, Physical and Land Use Planning Act, But again, all this, as we know, lacks a tailored refugee settlement conversion instrument. Misinformation is common, and the refugees are in the room, they will tell you, and in some cases, mistrust is growing. If we look beyond Kenya, there are models worth learning from. In Uganda, for example, and I want to believe it's already showing, great, thank you. In Uganda, refugee inclusion is embedded in district development plans, with the districts receiving budget allocations that factor in refugee populations, and joint planning committees bridging national and local priorities. In Ethiopia, the out-of-camp policy allows refugees to live in designated towns supported by federal regional agreements on service delivery and cost sharing. In Canada, the federal government sets policy while provinces and municipalities deliver integration services through formal agreements with clear funding flows and performance metrics. From these examples, I'd like to draw attention to 3 lessons that stand out. One of them, that has already been mentioned by previous speakers, is shared planning platforms. We need to have standing national and county committees where refugee inclusion is planned alongside other priorities, not as an afterthought as it has been. And I actually liked what the Honorable Deputy Speaker mentioned, that even as we build partnership, always we have only focused and thought of counties that are hosting refugees. Can we broaden the alliance and have friends that can help us mobilize from other counties that do not even host the refugees? Another example, another lesson, formula-based funding. We need to have predictable transfers to hosting countries so they can plan for the long term. And third, legal clarity for rights and mobility, aligning national laws with the local planning rules to remove contradiction. For Kenya's Shirika plan, this means embedding joint planning for refugee inclusion into the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council and Council of Governance sector committees with agreed financing frameworks and a clear legal pathway for integrated settlements. Now, how do we ensure that we make Shirika a whole of government program? International experience, from what I've highlighted, shows that collaborative refugee inclusion works best when 4 conditions come together. 1, peer learning. As seen in Canada's provincial exchanges on settlement innovation, can be replicated here by using the Council of Governors international partnerships to bring proven models into county planning. Counties could allocate small budgets for peer exchanges and integrate lessons into county and municipal plans through ongoing capacity building. Secondly, financial inclusion. Uganda's approach of incorporating refugees in its intergovernmental transfer formula demonstrates the power of predictable, needs-based allocation. Kenya can adapt this by including verified refugee populations in equitable share formulas and creating conditional grants linked to service delivery indicators like school enrollment, health access, and WASH coverage. Third, the legal alignment. Ethiopia's integration of the out-of-camp policy into its federal regional government structure shows how legal clarity can drive inclusion. In Kenya, I know we've had this discussion with the Department of Urban Planning. We need to align the Refugees Act with the County Governments Act and the Urban Areas and Cities Act and embed the Shirika Plans integrated settlement model into county integrated development plans. We also have issues of spatial plans and urban development frameworks, which is very essential. And lastly, under that component, institutionalization, or rather institutionalizing coordination. As in Canada's federal municipal agreements, Kenya should embed Shirika Plan specific terms of reference into existing intergovernmental bodies so refugee inclusion remains a standing agenda item. This should be paired with a lawful standardized framework for data sharing between national and county actors, ensuring targeted programming and accountability while respecting privacy laws. As I conclude, colleagues, the Shirika Plan offers us a realignment of political will, legislative reform, and financing. What is missing is not the framework. It is the consistent and coordinated use of the framework to make refugee inclusion part of Kenya's development DNA. We must act now to activate existing systems embed refugee inclusion in both national and county planning, and ensure that fiscal transfers match the realities of population needs. If we succeed, and I know we will, Kenya can prove that refugee inclusion is not a cost, but an investment in stability and growth. We can show the continent, that durable solutions are possible when national and local governments work hand in hand. The choice is ours, to seize this moment or to lose the momentum. And I believe that all of us in this room today, and those that are not here, are ready to seize that very moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard, for that very insightful presentation. I think he's really brought out where we need to find convergence when it comes to collaboration, and also giving insights in other countries, what is happening in other countries, something that we can learn as a country in terms of refugee management, in terms of inclusion, in terms of collaboration. Thank you, Jared. We now go to the next session, where we're going to have our panel discussions. I want to invite Rufus to come and guide us in the next session. Yes, and Rufus is the National Program Officer, Migration and Protection, and he's here on behalf of the Embassy of Switzerland as a moderator. Karibu, Rufus.
All right. Better round of applause for Grania for doing a very splendid job. It is my greatest honor to be able to facilitate this panel discussion, because we've had a couple of good conversations that have gone on in terms of the various remarks. So mine and this panel specifically is to really try to bring and crystallize the conversations and the discussions that have already foregone. I have a very stellar panelists that I would like to be able to already bring them on board so that then we can be able to have a good conversation over the next about 45 to 50 minutes or so. I want to give the privilege to the Commissioner, Ms. Mercy Mwasaru, the Department of Refugee Services, to join me on stage. Please, a round of applause for the Commissioner. And I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about her just in a few. I have also the pleasure and honor of inviting the Honorable Dr. John Erus, the Deputy Governor, County Government of Turkana. Please, a round of applause for him. I also have the pleasure to invite Ms. Anab Gedi, who is a refugee and a CEO of a women-led organization from Dadaab, Halgan Women Refugee Organization, and she is the founder of that organization. I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Suhail Awan, who is the Strategic Partnerships Advisor for UNHCR Kenya. And last but not least, we have Mr. Alan Mukuki, who is an expert on refugee affairs, but also international legal matters. And he is also a lecturer at Strathmore University. So ladies and gentlemen, this is our panel, and very much appreciated to be able then to take us on for the conversation. So just to be able to lay out the conversation and what is ahead of us, I have their bios here, which I can promise you is quite stellar. So I'll be trying to bring a couple of few things here and there as we go along, so that we can marry and also get in time for this panel conversation. So for this conversation, we indeed are looking at strengthening intergovernmental partnerships for inclusive development for refugees and host community. And how we'll run the panel is that we have first round of asking individual questions to each of the panelists, and they'll be able to then to give us their insights. We'll be able to prod them a little bit. But in the meantime, we also, from the audience, have an opportunity to be able to start thinking about some questions. We have a platform, Slido, that you can see on the screen. So if you go to slido.com and with the code 3902967, or you can do on the QR code, please start to put your questions as we get on into the discussions, because then after, when we open up for plenary, we can field some of the questions to the plenary. Being able then, so first we start with this first round of questions, then we also open up to you in terms of the questions that you will field, and then you'll be able then to have a good conversation. So what are we aiming to be able to get out of this conversation? First of all, we keep talking, and we've talked a lot this morning about the intergovernmental coordination or relations between national, county, the counties having to bear the brunt and also to host refugees for many years. But what does that look like? What does effective intergovernmental collaboration and partnerships look like? So hopefully that's one question, broad question, that we'll be asking and hoping to get out of this conversation. What lessons can we draw out from the Turkana County, from Garissa County, as the Honorable Speaker has also talked about? What is it that we can be able to draw out from that in terms of implementation of the Shirika Plan? And even then, when we talk about socioeconomic inclusion for refugees and host community. And then lastly, moving forward, what needs to be done? What needs to be kept? What needs to be dropped? So I think that also would be important to be able then to really unpack. This is the part that put away your written speeches, and at least let's try to have a real conversation with all protocol observed. Madam Mercy, you have just joined the Department of Refugee Service, and first of all, congratulations and commendation for the great work. She has a stellar work within this, this Kenya government, and also in terms of the national administration. She's also an author. So in case you need to be able to, she's written a lot about peace building in a pastoral community setup. So maybe later on, meet up with her, ask her about her book, and also where you can be able to get it. But you've just taken on the reins at the Department of Refugee Service. Congratulations to the government of Kenya for launching the Shirika Plan in March 2025. But even then, maybe from where you sit now, the big file that you have picked from the previous commissioner, what progress have you seen, and that gives you confidence that actually we are actually on the pathway towards a transformational potential with the Shirika Plan? And can you say we're actually on the right track? Are we really getting the Shirika Plan going? Maybe just as a first of reflection.
Thank you, Bwana Rufus, and congratulations, well accepted. So I will say the government actually took a bold step after 35 years plus of hosting refugees in the country to launch the Shirika Plan. It was long overdue, and as we try to put it, it is time to stabilize the refugee community, the refugee population. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Shirika Plan actually is a multi-year phased approach on how we are going to roll out integration and inclusion of our brothers and sisters. Currently, we are on the transition phase since the launch, and the transition phase is expected to run until 2028. What do I mean by transition phase? This is where now all the partners and the two levels of government need to come together and have a sober and deliberate discussion on what do we need for our people and our neighbors. We need to have structures and frameworks which are acceptable by all people who are in the refugee management space. And for that matter, we say that we are actually laying down the foundation and the planning strategies on how we roll out this Shirika Plan. What so far since March has happened, which also give impetus that we are on the right track towards implementation of Shirika Plan. A key of it that is the gazettement of the Kenya Information and Communication Regulations 2025 and the chartering of Dadaab and Kakuma as special municipalities. It comes with goodies and benefits. It is now for the two tiers of government to walk this journey together in actualizing the vision and the intent of those municipalities. As we are by yesterday, I'm glad to say that we have already onboarded over 70,000 refugees into the Kenyan Social Health Insurance Fund platform. That opens up to access to health services under SHA or SHIF. The other thing is we have also gazetted and recognized 6 documents since the launch of the Shirika plan. And one of them is the Asylum Seeker Pass, the Proof of Registration, the Movement Pass, Letter of Recognition, and Refugee ID card and conventional travel documents. I had a previous speaker talk about some of these, like the CTDs. It's something we are trying to fast track whenever we receive those applications, but there's still room to further the discussion on how better we can manage that space so that we don't have people maybe experiencing some delays here and there, so that we are all moving in the same platform. The other thing since the launch of the Shirika plan, we have already onboarded over 100 schools in the Kenya National Education Management platform. And with that, it is going to open space to benefit even the refugee population in terms of education support and scholarship. So it's now a matter of how we move about it. And then we are also having over 145 refugees who have been accessing, and then we are recognizing their previous education experience. Because we have some of these experts within the refugee space. But because of that identity that you are a refugee, they have been confined. They cannot potentially exercise the knowledge and skills they attained from their education system, which are very critical to us. We have started the process. I know the number is still low, and I want to believe we are going to enhance our processes so that we also have quality assurance from the Ministry of Education on the qualification from the hosts, from the countries of origin, the education system, and how they fit into our systems. And then we recognize those ones and give them opportunities.
Maybe you hold on there, because there's a lot of things that you have said, and we would like to unpack. And I think I'll need also to come back to you, Anna, particularly, first of all, commendation to the government of Kenya, looking at also the policy, legislative steps that has been taken, particularly what you've just mentioned, the regulations, the SIM card registration regulations, which also enables refugees to be able then to further the aspect of access to finance in terms of then getting access to whether it's them registering on M-Pesa or even mobile banking. But I'll come to Anna to see whether that actually is in the Kenyan balance, whether we are feeling it on ground. So you'll be able to give us also an experience since these regulations and the different steps that has been taken. Maybe just a very quick one, and I'm hoping you can also be able to, because it kept on coming a number of times, and then before I come to the Honorable Deputy Governor, is the issue of political momentum, and that's also how we'll also start off with the Deputy Governor in a short while. But from where you sit, political momentum is something that has always been talked about, has been spoken even previously with the presentation, that for Shirika plan to be able to be effective, to be operational, political momentum across board, whether it's from the national government, political leadership, the county leadership, but recently, whether from, we've seen some protests happening in the camps, whether related to food aid. There's also been a bit of stakeholder pushback, some different narratives coming up in terms of what Shirika plan is, what Shirika plan is not, even coming up from different sectors of political leadership at the county level. So how is the government engaging on with this kind of concerns and also building trust to ensure that that political momentum and goodwill is maintained across board for the plan to be operationalized? Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rufus. On the political front, what I can say, the two levels of government actually are reading from the same script. The only bit which now we need to tie together is having a common understanding. But the end goal on what we want to see about refugees is a shared aspiration by the national government and the two county governments. So with that one, there is no dispute. It is now aligning what the objectives and the lenses of the national government are to the county's specific policies and also visions and aspirations for the refugee population. And I want to say, even this platform today, it is one of its kind. And it's the first time since devolution came into space. And a previous speaker also alluded to it, that we have never had this conversation about refugees in a holistic manner. There is a beginning to everything. I'm seeing a brighter future, more cooperation, and more coordination. Because even when we talk about the refugee population, there are no refugees who belong to the county government or to the national government. They are our visitors, they are our brothers and sisters as people of Kenya. So we have to live to even what our constitution terms about most of the functions which are going to be offered to the refugees. They are actually functions under the county government. While we remain at the policy level, the county level are actually at the execution point. Where do we link up? And I want to believe Rufus. And with the county government of Turkana here, we have had some discussions by the sidelines since yesterday. Garissa County also the same. We have been given a challenge as the national government. We need to work as one and see where do we want to go as a country, putting the best foot forward for the refugee management in this space.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that. I would like to pull in the Honorable Dr. John Erus, the Deputy Governor for Turkana, the County Government of Turkana. I mean, counties, and you rightly said in your opening remarks in terms of also appreciating the great sacrifice that counties, not just Turkana, but also Garissa, Nairobi, and the many others that do host refugees within even urban context, they are playing an important hosting role. And now with the rollout of the Shirika Plan, what role do you see for county governments in driving the implementation of the Shirika Plan, but also within the broader framework of devolution? And then secondly, we'll still come back to unpack this question of coordination, how you see it from where you sit at the county level. Welcome, Dr. John.
Thank you, Rufus. One of the key things since yesterday is devolution being the driving engine of development in counties. And so when I talked about Turkana County or the Garissa County and other counties that are hosting refugees in terms of sacrifice, we are narrowing down to how the infrastructure that exists within these counties have contributed generally to just informal integration. When I think about a Shirika Plan, I understand it from the context of devolution. And without anchoring it as part of that structure, where the Houses of Parliament become part and parcel of the discussions around the Shirika Plan, then it is lost down the momentum. Let me just mention two things. First is, in this case, the national government, this is a national government ambitious framework. So the question is, who initiates the first move? Is it the development partners? Is it the national government? Is it the county government? And I think this is a very critical question. Number two, Shirika Plan has costed the pillars to about 943 million. That's close to about 11-12 trillion Kenya shillings. In terms of aligning those pillars, who needs to do what in terms of resource mobilization for those? Number three, Shirika Plan is also a highly ambitious plan. There are critical things within the plan that if it can be teased out, they are implementable, even at the level of integrated services at the county government. So what do I see here? I see that journey as more dynamic and more strategic and not just passive but active. In terms of looking at how we can roll out, a few things come to our mind. One of the speakers talked about awareness. I think there is a need to unpack Shirika plan, and unpacking Shirika plan should just happen at both horizontal and vertical levels. As we speak, one of the speakers alluded to the fact that the county COG do not even have a clear understanding of what a Shirika plan is. And I represented the county government in the fourth discussions on the fourth formula for allocation of resources to the county. And I remember mentioning whether the counties that are hosting refugees, there is a parameter to determine whether they can have some kind of financial support, specifically in terms of integrated service. And as from the county government, as we try to appreciate the fact that both the refugees and the host community can live together, we could open up the infrastructure for socio-economic development through private sector support, as well as looking at what key value chains are able to expand that access even within our municipality. We feel that counties, as everybody has spoken, and I think we have had the discussions with the president as well, that the county governments of Turkana and the county governments of Garissa should, or they are best suited to lead the efforts of implementation of Shirika plan, but that requires significant investments, and also we need to localize Shirika plan. I think people have talked about spatial planning, sector strategies. That is what we believe would be opportunities. Embedding refugee and host priorities into county budgets and annual development plans. We currently are doing that as the county government, but we are also facing challenges in terms of how those integrated services are costing them. And the other challenge is where the commitment from the development partners through Kakuma Integrated Socio-Economic Development 2 is very slow in terms of its implementation. Strengthening peace building and social cohesion at the community level as a shared responsibility and not replacing the national mandates is really key. I remember talking about the question of prima facie, whether there is need to discuss broadly because of the entitlements and the disruption that is caused by differentiated assistance strategy. And we feel maybe there is a need to bring some kind of order. So to me, the future of refugee management is local. And devolution is not just governance system. It is the solution.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can feel free to clap. Thank you very much, Dr. John, for that. And I think I would want to press you a little bit. And I like that last statement that the future of refugee management is also is local. But when you talk about coordination, and that's also picking up from what Commissioner has talked about, but perhaps where are the pain points when we talk about the coordination between national and county? Maybe if you could give one or two thoughts around that, and what is it that needs to be done to unlock these pain points when it comes to coordination between national and county on refugee management?
When we talk about coordination, when you look at the pillars of Shirika plan, I narrow down to socio-economic development. Governors of Turkana has entrusted me with the issue of coordination of partnerships and also resource mobilization. When I look at the socio-economic development pillar, for example, are we talking about key value chains that we have already identified as the county government? Because that is really key for us. For us, Kakuma is a big market because of the regional opportunities that come with hosting the refugees. We brag of skills development, both for the refugees and the host community. We recently just launched modern auto garage that is going to provide skills development for both the refugees and the host community. When we are looking at all those kind of strategies, we look at what are we building to open access to those communities, both the refugees and the host communities, that is going to accelerate support and self-independence. Let me just give one example. We have water challenges in Turkana West in general and Kakuma refugee camp. Governor and I came into the office, this is the third year. We are doing the best we can to look at long-term sustainable water systems, not just addressing the immediate needs of water within the Kakuma refugee camp, but in Turkana West. And so we decided that the only way to do that is to invest in River Taraj at a cost of 4.2 billion. When we are thinking about Sherika plan, we are looking at broader investments. We have brought in private sector investments in Turkana to look at how we can develop those kind of systems. So for us, if we are not going to include the Senate, for example, or the Council of Governors, as a key stakeholder, we, the county governments, may continue to engage with the national government at various levels, but without this going to be something that is structured, that is county national dialogues on the refugee policy, consultations at different levels, and these consultations must be ongoing and strategic. For me, what that looks like is, first of all, just having a stakeholder engagement to unpack Sherika plan, identify what is visible and implementable within the framework of the county governments and our CIDPs and the national government, and also just to see how COG, the department bringing in Governor Sang, so that when we are looking at the models of implementing Sherika plan, I also wanted to say that Kakuma is probably more unique because we are hosting 26 nationalities. And so our model may probably slightly be slightly more complex, adapt to various kind of expectations within those communities, as opposed to probably some of the models that have been covered. So one of the things that I wanted to mention there is that we urge UNHCR, civil society development partners, to invest in building COG's institutional capacity to coordinate refugee matters across all hosting counties, because that is what we think strong partnerships need strong institutions. COG is that bridge between national policy and county action, and we really need to explore those pathways as critical to coordination of the implementation of Sherika plan.
Thank you so much, Deputy Governor. And those are very concrete recommendations, and I'm glad that the Commissioner is here, because then moving forward, whether it's the inclusion of how to engage with the COG, the Council of Governors specifically, and also the inclusion of Senate, as well as also those forums or platforms for exchanges and awareness, those are very critical recommendations. I want to pull in Anna Gedi, because also reflecting back on the work that you do as the Halgan Women Refugee Organization based out of Dadaab. Yourself, you've been in Kenya for I think over 2 decades. Maybe first you could begin by just explaining to us the work that you do as the Halgan Women Refugee Organization, and a little bit also because it's a refugee-led organization, painting a picture. What is it that other refugee-led organizations are doing before we come a little bit to look at some of the barriers towards integration that also the Commissioner mentioned in terms of the progress that has been made. But first off, what inspired you with the work that you do with the Halgan Women Organization?
Thank you, moderator. Before I share with you what inspired me and also the work Halgan is doing, let me take this opportunity first to thank the government of Kenya for hosting us for more than 30 years. And also, I'm very happy today because it's the first devolution conference which refugees are invited. That's a step taken and it's a milestone. And I really appreciate anybody who invited refugees to this wonderful forum and who made refugee voices to be heard in this wonderful conference. Thank you very much, and we will not take that one for granted. I'm really very happy today. If I come to what inspired me and where I came from and what I'm doing, first of all, I'm a refugee by status. My name is Anab Gedi Mohammed. I was in the refugee camps for more than 30 years. I was grown up in the refugee camps, especially Dadaab. On behalf of all the RLOs in Kenya, I'm thanking to anybody who made the refugee voices to be heard and who engaged refugees to sit down in the table and share with their grievances, their challenges, the outcomes and everything. Thank you very much. After thanking, I'm called Anab Gedi Mohammed. I'm the founder and the executive director of Halgan Women-led organization based in Garissa County, Dadaab refugee camps. I was a refugee for so long in Dadaab. If I talk about what inspired me to create the women-led organization, in Dadaab and all the refugee camps, the highest population in the refugee camps are women, youth and children who are the most vulnerable ones. So we are the ones who are from the community, and there are a lot of challenges here and there. When it comes to vulnerability, the rate of gender-based violence in the refugee camps was very high. And in Dadaab, and even the rest of the refugees in Kenya, we have different nationalities living together, which has different perspective when it comes to cultural, when it comes to norms. So we have seen that the rate of gender-based violence in the refugee camps is very high. So we said, although we are from the community and the voice of the voiceless in the refugee camps, how can we support our people so that these things may reduce? So we created a Halgan. We started as a self-help group in 2017. What we used to do was like sensitize the community about the challenges of early marriage, forced marriage, FGM, and also, we have ideas that girls should not be taken to school, girls should stay at home, girls should not learn. So we said, how can we change that idea from the community so that, if you educate women, that means you have educated the whole world. But because of the cultural perspectives and norms, they said that girls should not go to school. But, it was us who came from the community, learned, and we have seen the importance of education. So we said, how can we support them? So we started this women-led organization. We consist of 15 members. Out of that 15 members, we only have 3 male. The rest are women. So we empower women and girls. We train them with skills. So far, Halgan, we trained like more than 800 mothers and girls. 300 of the ones we trained with the skills are now doing business and earning income in the refugee camps. And we said that, humanitarian arts were supporting us for more than 30 years. So it might happen tomorrow that, as we all know, that funds are shrinking and, the life is not the way it was. How can we support our people so that tomorrow, If the partners or all the people supporting the refugees say that we don't have anything, so that they stand on their feet. So that's what inspired Halgan to do, to create this women-led organization. So after registering as a self-help group in 2017, later in 2021, we registered as a refugee-led organization led by women, because we came from the community and we are the ones start understanding the challenges women are facing. In Dadaab and also Kakuma, you know, the vulnerability rate is very high. We are not getting all the services. It's not 100%. Mothers will go to fetch firewood, fetch water, and they're facing a lot of, challenges when they go to fetch water, like rape. There is also that ambition of, culture of the female genital mutilation, which girls are suffering when it comes to giving birth. So since Halgan has created this initiative, it's like now those challenges are not the way it was. It has the percentage is now not the way it was. It's not only Halgan which is in Dadaab nowadays. When we have started the initiative, there are a lot of CBOs, community-based organization, women-led organization, and refugee-led organization who have seen that the good job we are doing and also registered, and they are doing different work, like when it comes to education, when it comes to environment, when it comes even to the supporting the gender-based violence. We are very many, both in Kakuma and Dadaab. On the other hand, there is high level of literacy among women in Dadaab. When many women in the camp lacked access to education and basic literacy, which limited their appointment for self-reliance, that motivated me to integrate learning and skill building into my organization programs. There is also need of grassroots-led solutions. You know, we know the challenges in the community. We are the ones coming from the community. So that's what inspired me to create my own initiative and support my people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And it's quite inspiring to hear the wonderful work that you're doing on empowerment. We'll come back to you specifically with any specific recommendations that you might have, particularly when we talked about the economic integration. Suhail, and many thanks. I can already see that there are questions coming through Slido, and we're also trying to make sure that we are on time to be able to have an opportunity to have the plenary. Maybe Suhail, given that UNHCR has really been very much engaged and has been supporting the Kenya government in the development of the Shirika plan, and going on from the remarks that were given by the country representative, maybe looking forward in terms of implementation, what are the key programming and policy measures? So those moving ahead, because one of the words or the remarks that was given by Caroline Van Buren was also to talk about and say that with Shirika plan being launched, now we start the work of implementation. So from where you sit, what are these 1, 2, 3 things that are very much needed, but very in terms of being brief, so that then we can be able to go on and open up the plenary after after Alan Mukuki has spoken. Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much. I am honored to have me, and congratulations to VNG and all the partners for pulling up this very important conversation. This was very, very important, and I think this deliberation and basically this is a reflection of when we say whole of a society approach, that it's not only government, it's not only UNHCR talking about refugees, international protection, it's everybody, right? The RLOs, the refugee leaders, the refugees themselves. So that is the essence of the localization, which is ultimately I mean, at the key sector level, if on the operationalization of the Shirika plan, I think the very first thing, if you ask me and ask us, I mean, yes, UNHCR, from the day when the government of Kenya announced in 2022, I remember that there needs to be, as Commissioner rightly said, that there needs to be a comprehensive and long-term strategic roadmap rather than, a day-to-day policy. And from 1990 till 2016, we have seen spikes, rather 19, spikes in the Kenya's policy. But the progress has been commendable. I mean, the inclusion trajectory, in fact, started in 2016 onward. If you look at it, the KISIDAP, the Refugee Act, I mean, so on and so forth. So UNHCR has been supporting, and then in April 2023, this joint secretariat of UNHCR, DRS was notified to develop and operationalize the Sharika plan. And Sharika plan is there now. It's an effort of over two years. A lot of intellectual, technical, and financial investment has gone into it. And thanks to our funders who were able to provide those funds for developing that plan. Now what's next? The momentum. I think it is important to have a kind of an inclusive secretariat, inclusive coordination structure, which His Excellency Deputy Governor said, which His Excellency Nadeef Jama always say, and the Honorable County Speaker said, and Commissioner has rightly said that. So a kind of a inclusive coordination structure where, and by the way, the Secretariat is already there. So first step should be that once that has it, then the sector level plans, what the technical committees down the line, and at county level, by the way, there are existing coordination structures available. There is a KISDP coordination secretariat, there is a GISDP coordination secretariat led by very able people of the county government. So this coordination structure for the national level should speak with those coordination structures rather than we coming up something new. I mean, we have all the resources gaps and all these things. Once that is done, then obviously we can talk about what is needed into health. For example, yes, 70,000 has been included into, but then what is the barrier into the health? If you ask me, the bottom line and everything, the foundation is basically the integration into IPRS, right? So right now, refugees data is into IPRS, but then those 230,000, which is the backlog, it is not there. So it has two ways. One, I mean, this is very, very positive development. This is among many other developments. I think, Commissioner spoke very few. This is among major achievements that refugee IDs number has been, reformed, and now the refugees data is the IPRS. What does it mean? It means you don't need a separate refugee database. So because that is the main country's database, it speaks to everything. And that is the foundational for inclusion. But then again the RSD, right? So that people are able to access. And it's not only health, it's social protection, it's education, it's related to that. So it's fundamental. Then
maybe Suhail,
yes,
we pause there because then so that then we can be able to have a bit of time. But two things that I think stand out for me: the inclusive, coordination structure still comes back. So, Commissioner, as you come in your intro, it looks like unlocking this bit on coordination is quite important. The integrated data platform, which already is existing, so using data to be able then to inform the planning, so whether it's on the sectoral level, that also is quite important. Maybe Suhail, allow me to pause there, then we see also what comes up, and I'm getting a couple of questions that are coming from Slido. Alan, let me pull you in, and I'll just only ask you one question, because where you sit and you have had the advantage of being an academia, you work at the, you have great initiatives within the Strathmore University, so pulling in some of the lessons learned, looking at the unique devolved context in which we are in, the devolution that we are now even in this conference, what lessons can we be able to get from other refugee hosting contexts that have actually been able to successfully strengthen this intergovernmental level or multi-level governance between national as well as county in refugee responses. And I think from Jared, there was a couple of examples that were given from whether it's Uganda and as well as also in Ethiopia and Canada, but also maybe you could help us to unpack a little bit what are some of these one or two concrete lessons, and then now I will take the floor in terms of the questions that have come through. Thank you.
Thank you, Rufus. All protocols observed as stated. When Jared was presenting, I was reflecting a bit on the work I've done, because I had the privilege of drafting the IGAD policy framework that involved the 7 countries, which was signed in December 2023. And then I also had the privilege of developing the Nairobi County strategy, which was the first urban strategy of its kind in terms of refugee management. So in my work, the aspect that has come is that Uganda, especially during the IGAD process, has been seen as a very progressive country when it comes to refugee policies, where refugees have the freedom of movement, the right to work, access to land under their 2006 Refugee Act and the 2010 regulations. But again, implementation has been a problem considering the numbers. Ethiopia in 2019 had a leap in its refugee proclamation as well, where it introduced the right to work, the right to live outside camps and access national services. However, due to administrative bottlenecks, that has been a problem. So how does this look like when we talk about lessons, especially from a multi-governance context? We find that for Kenya, as the Deputy Governor has mentioned, there is that complexity of that different counties have different capacities when it comes to management of this. And the Uganda Settlement Transformative Agenda, which deals with settlement of refugees, shows a delineation between national and local government, where the local government has been given a role, and also implementation guidelines where, again, as has been mentioned by the Commissioner, to avoid duplication aspects. So you find a multi-tiered approach when it comes to refugee management in Uganda. If you look at Jordan, for example, there is also the aspect of binding multi-stakeholder agreements that have been developed and that tie refugee inclusion to tangible refugee economic benefits for the host. And again, Ethiopia as well with the CRRF regional implementation, there is need for capacity building, and I think Suhail has mentioned that aspect of capacity building at the sub-national level before rolling out this ambitious shift. So ideally, for Kenya, looking at these other countries, Uganda, Ethiopia, Jordan, you then see that in a devolved system, there is that aspect of capacity asymmetrics between counties, because this can create uneven implementation. And so there is need for targeted technical assistance, flexible approaches, and locally adapted rollout plans rather than a one-size-fits-all model. And I think, as has been mentioned by the Deputy Governor, there is the aspect of there is need for sensitization. Just as an example, when I was doing the Nairobi strategy, I had to do a lot of field work with refugees and also county governors, and county directors. And the first question I would ask county directors is, do you know Nairobi County has refugees? And the first response was, what are they doing here? Again, so the first job then became, and if you look at the Nairobi strategy, much of what is included in that strategy is that first there needs to be sensitization. And then when you sensitize people and they know what they are dealing with, they are then able to implement the suggestions that come up from the Shirika plan and other regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. And indeed, Nairobi County has a county integrated strategy, and Alan was actually part of the team that was working and helping the county government to be able to do that. So it's good this point about sensitization keeps coming up. So one of the questions that has come through the Slido, and here I'm trying to bring a cue so that whoever has the mic can also, because we'll be trying to bring one of the conversations that has not come up very strongly is the private sector engagement. And I know in the room we have a couple of private sector actors. I think I saw Equity, I saw Inkomoko, I saw IFC with the private sector work that is done. So, and the governor, deputy governor also mentioned a little bit in terms of new ways of working or how do we tap into private sector. So we'll try and bring in someone from, at least from Equity. Commissioner, there's a very specific question to you as well as also to the deputy governor. Picking up on this issue of awareness, it has also come up from the Turkana County government. What are the specific plans in place to sensitize the community as well as also the various county authorities as well as and general population around the Shirika plan? And then secondly, as the incoming or now as the commissioner, this I guess is a question that is coming from the refugees. What should they expect from your office and from yourself in terms of furthering this agenda of socioeconomic inclusion for refugees? So maybe you can find a way to be able to be brief on answering those two questions. Maybe to prepare you, Deputy Governor, on specifically the Shirika plan and on your own reflections, are there specific things in the Shirika plan that you think needs to be redefined or can it be implemented in totality? I think you've mentioned a couple of things, but perhaps if there's any additional one. Maybe I start off first with the Commissioner, and then I come to the Governor, and then I will look to the floor to see whether Equity would be ready, a representative from Equity, and then also we'll open up the floor thereafter.
Thank you, Rufus. On the issue of what the refugee community expects from Commissioner Mwasaru, mine is to give a commitment of walking the journey and working together in terms and matters refugee management and how we balance our expectations of the county governments, which are the host counties. So it is going to be a multi-layered kind of engagement, starting from the national government, first of all. Then we'll also have another engagement very soon with the respective county governments so that we are all at par on what the sphere or the refugee space looks like and what are their visions, strategies, and measures, and how we align for the two governments, because we will be continuing from where my predecessor was. Then we'll also be having engagements with the targeted population, that is the refugee communities. Then we'll also be having an all-encompassing conversation, because we need to accept that there are conversations which need to be done at those different levels. And then once there is a common understanding between the two levels of government, then bring in the people we are talking about. You cannot move far if you are just making decisions without listening and sitting down to exchange ideas, to, unbundle the issues with the people you are planning for. And then we also have our development partners and the NGOs, all of them. So there'll be at different levels of stakeholder engagement. But rest assured, the refugee community will be also having their own forum of engagement.
Thank you. Thank you. A round of applause for the Commissioner for that commitment, and we'll be holding you to account. Maybe we should give you a scorecard after 100 days in office and see how that goes. All right. Definitely. Deputy Governor, maybe briefly on that question, and then we will look to the floor to see if Equity, and then I'll prime Suhail, looking at also from a UNHCR development perspective, financing for municipalities. How do we ensure that those municipalities that are hosting refugees, what are the specifics that needs to be done? Deputy Governor.
The Turkana County government has a guiding principle in terms of how we envision a Shirika plan and how it can transform the lives of both the Turkana and the refugees. So equity over exclusion is key and drives our agenda. And that means that we must have services that flow based on need and not on the legal status as refugees. And that's why, to us, unlocking economic potential of both the locals and the refugees, investing in programs that stimulate development, that also attracts investments, building stronger community bonds through shared services, looking at how we map out the land, and our Chief Officer for Urban Development and Lands is here, very critical in terms of implementing the vision that we have to ensure that access to the services envisioned in the Shirika Plan or Refugee Act 2021 coordinated in a way that helps to bridge the communities. So for us, I think legal clarity on county mandates in refugee inclusion and the technical assistance that has been mentioned or required, and the expectations of both the donors and us as county government in terms of implementing a Shirika plan require long-term predictable financing for counties to drive integration. And therefore, moving from refugee response to refugee inclusion requires shared investments, shared leadership, shared accountability, and we feel that as counties or as a country, we can set global standard for refugee inclusion under Shirika plan. But only if we empower ourselves and ensuring that our partnership deliver a lasting impact that we envision in long-term investments.
Thank you very much. And I can see that the Commissioner is writing because you already have the first agenda items for your exchanges with the county. I will not forget to also mention you had previously talked about also unpacking what integration really means. I think that also came off from the various presentations. And I think that legal clarity and even looking at the question of freedom of movement, what does that look like in an integrated or Shirika plan? What does it mean for refugees to be able to move them towards socioeconomic inclusion? So I think, Commissioner, you have quite an entry of agenda items, and again, the 100 days are still ticking from now. Good. I think I have been informed, Honorable Boniface Gitobu, who is the Equity representative, Equity Bank representative. I will ask you to be very brief. I know, politicians, when you give them the mic, they like to run away with it. So please, if you have one or two reflections or specific questions, please go ahead, and then I will bring back to Suhail, and then see whether there's any other question from the floor. Thank you, sir.
Hello. Thank you very much, Rufus. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Your Excellency, and the entire panel. I think it has been a wonderful session. Let's appreciate them with a clap, please. As Rufus, you've correctly said, my name is Honorable Kinoti Gatobu. I'm the Director of Advocacy at Equity Group Foundation, and we are bands of a feather. We've done a lot with the latest engagement in Turkana County was the signing of an risk-sharing facility with the IFC, where His Excellency the Governor was the chief guest in February, and we're aiming at looking for a partner that can help us give financial independence to the refugees. Instead of just the cash transfers, how can we empower them to become entrepreneurs and become more independent in empowering themselves financially? I'm happy to see the diversity of the panel. Before I came to Equity Group Foundation, I was the director of the President's Delivery Unit, and before that I was a member of Parliament for Bode constituency in Meru County. So I've had my feet in government and also in the private sector. Before I go to my request to the panelists, I want to give a few seconds of an insight of what we've been doing at Equity. Equity Group Foundation is a non-profit arm of Equity Bank, and we've been providing the platform through which development partners and the government can transfer benefits to the refugees. So far, we've done about 5.9 million beneficiaries and transferred a total of 169.8 billion Kenya shillings. This includes the old age, the orphans, the persons with disability, but for refugees specifically has been 1.1 million. We've also been very strong on education. Our biggest pillar in the foundation is in education. We've taken 60,000 kids under Wings to Fly, out of which 8,000 have been from Dadaab and Kakuma refugee camps. So I fully believe in the ideal desire that we can make refugees not just a burden to the country, but an opportunity for us. Now, to my request, especially to Commissioner, one of the biggest challenges we've been having, the 1.1 million refugees, we've been giving a platform for cash transfers. Based on our network, we have 82,000 banking agents spread across the country and 397 branches. That's why it has been very easy working with the government in transferring cash transfers to the refugees and the needy society. But for instance, the IFC credit guarantee scheme we have is becoming a bit difficult to open accounts for the refugees and advance loans to them. I would wish to incorporate them fully into the banking system of the country. And that can only happen if the Ministry of Interior, in collaboration with Central Bank of Kenya, can give a policy guidance or a gazettement that the refugee ID is recognized as a legal document to open an account and also to apply for a loan in the financial institutions in the country. We've been pursuing that with the CS and other government stakeholders, but it has not been successful so far. So Commissioner and the other stakeholders, if you can help us achieve that, I believe in the next few years, the refugees we are hosting in Kenya can be some of the biggest achievers in our country. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping it very short and also very pointed. I think, Commissioner, you also have a question perhaps as we try to wrap up, and you will probably provide some bit of clarity. So Hale, because some of these municipalities that or areas that have been recently upgraded into municipalities, whether it's on the Kakuma, Kalobei side or in Dadaab, and I know there's also another municipality, but how can then these entities be able then to look at diversifying financing, or what opportunities do you see before then I try to look to my colleagues who are guiding me in terms of maybe the next question. But one of the last question will be from ANAP or also from the floor with any of the refugees in terms of the specific recommendations to the Commissioner. So Hale?
Thank you very much. Very interesting question for several reasons. And I would like to address this question from our experience of working in several forced displacement contexts and trying to help mobilize resources, especially bringing in the private sector. I remember when in 2016 we tried bringing in IFC to Kakuma. It costed us $25,000, and we supported them and we supported that study. And then IFC went there because IFC didn't saw a business case there. But then, that evolved. Kakuma in my backyard, everybody knows. Then, KKCF came in, and today we are talking about $20 million this risk sharing facility. So first of all, it's all about, and then the hat I wear of mobilizing resources for the UN as a head of strategic partnerships and external engagements. Very simple. To mobilize resources to bring in the private sector into the forced displacement context, you need to have an ecosystem approach. That is number one. And what is the ecosystem approach? It is the enabling policy regime, because the risk appetite for the private capital is often, very, very low. For example, this $20 million risk sharing facility or a $3 billion risk sharing facility by SIDA, your previous, the Swedish with the Kenya Commercial Bank, KCB. These cannot be operationalized unless the Chapter 488 under your banking regulations and the KYC regulations of 2016 are addressed. So that is one. Second, simplified processes, no bottlenecks, as they on one hand discourage the investors, and on the other hand they open the door for exploitation and unfair gains, if I may be allowed to put it this way, right? So it is very important when we are making new systems. For example, now the SIM card regulations has been passed. So it is very important how we are going to operationalize that. Are we going to put up few agents who will be responsible to issue those SIM cards, which means it will be a bottleneck? So how are those agents going to exploit people? Because on the other hand, bringing people into the system is the biggest security guarantee. Having people out of the system is the biggest security threat, right? So and we can go on, this is a separate debate. The third thing is, at the stage of formulations of annual development plans, whether it's a municipality, it's a county, or it's a national ministry, department, agency, and especially at the county level and the cities which are hosting refugees, it is very important to identify the potential areas with the role of the private sector, as well as the public infrastructure which facilitates the private sector. For example, just very small example, from Lodwar to Kakuma, excellent road. But from Dadaab to Garissa, it's very difficult. And imagine, you just zoom out, don't look at Dadaab and Kakuma from refugee hosting. These are centuries old trade corridors, right? So I mean, the infrastructure which facilitates the private sector. For example, and then identify the subsectors. The energy subsector, how you can bring in, where to bring in. The last and very, very important is the capacity of within those counties. People who are able to pitch in, who are able to, promote and, attract the patient's capital. So again, capacity building, which His Excellency Governor said that when the priorities was being mentioned by the Commissioner, she said that we are very much there, and we are more than, and we are working on few things which will come out few days. Some of these which has been asked, I don't want to say now, at least that I want to appreciate those development partners that at least some of these agenda items which has been highlighted, these are in active, I may say, now in a hard pipeline, so we will be able to hit the ground with the support of, in the leadership of the DRS and the counties, will be supporting them in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Clap for Suhail. I'm seeing Grenya has stood up because then time is really spent, and I think we need to be able to wrap up this. But just one very quick word, and I'll give the last word to Anab, because I'll give you the privilege to, now that you have here the Commissioner, as well as also the Deputy Governor, what would be specifically to the Commissioner, one specific recommendation that you'd like to be able to pass on behalf of the refugee-led organizations. But before you say that, I have on the floor Honorable Charles Lokioto, who is the Speaker from Turkana County. And against Deputy Governor, you'll permit me, because I have just been informed that they would just like to say one word in terms of reflecting on the county assemblies and the role that the county assemblies play, but from a Turkana side of things. Do we have? Oh, yes. So I think he's over there. If you could just keep it brief in terms of by way of recommendation, and then we will come back to the panel in terms of your final parting shots. Just very few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Rufus, and thank you, the panel. Again, I'm Charles Lokiote Woy, the Speaker of the County Assembly of Turkana. From our end, our recommendation is the gap between the national government and the county government and the partners should be bridged. Then two, the information, the channel of information. One, I have heard the Commissioner that there are some numbers that have been loaded on SHA, others on education, whether it is NEMIS, then others that have been boarded on skills. Is this information with the county government, with the refugee organizations or the people, so that we get to know that? And lastly, as a county government, as a county assembly of Turkana, we have begun the process of amending our standing orders to include the refugee affairs. What we have done, we have expanded the mandate of the justice, legal, and added and refugee affairs. That will be a committee that will be in charge of refugee affairs in the Kakuma refugee camp and in the county assembly. Then lastly, we are saying and asking the Commissioner that we need to unpack the Shirika plan. Now, what is happening in Kakuma? The refugees are associating it with the Shirika plan because they don't know what it is. So we would require that the Shirika plan is unpacked to the county government, to the county assembly, to the organizations and the leadership of the refugees, such that we are all in one page and we can be able to interact using the Shirika plan. Thank you.
A better clap for the Turkana County Assembly and that very progressive adoption and also amending your standing orders to be able to include refugee matters. So now I come towards the end. So very quickly, if you had a magic wand or if you look into the future, what is one thing that if you were to be recommending in terms of then unlocking some of the barriers or some of the things in terms of critical recommendation? We start with you, Anab. Keep it very short. Then I go down with Alan, and then Suhail, and then I will finish with the Deputy Governor and also with the Commissioner in terms of even the recommendation or the question that had been asked. So just try to keep it short so that we can be able to conclude this panel.
Thank you, Moderator. As a person representing the RLOs in Kenya, My main recommendation is, we were talking about Shirika plan and integration. I think integration is already there because refugees and host community are intermarried. They do business together. They do a lot of things together. But there are a lot of challenges when it comes to integration. So let me take this opportunity because there are a lot of representatives from the government. I need to get their feedback. So what is their take when it comes to those challenges? The challenges are the limited employment and entrepreneurships, also shortage of infrastructure, quality of education, governance and policy contradictions, policy misalignments, social perceptions. The main challenging thing is the documentation. You will see, a child born in Dadaab, that years old, and he doesn't have any documentation.
Thank you,
Same
Anna.
applies to the alien cards, work permits. The challenge there is something called incentive wages, which is the most challenging and demoralizing the people in the refugee camps, because if you are a diploma holder, a degree holder, or whatever, there is something called incentive wages, which is not more than 8,000 shilling. And what we know is 8,000 is nothing nowadays. So we need to address those concerns to the government so that they take steps. Back to you.
Thank you very much. If I take anything from you, the challenge of documentation. That's one specific thing. I want you to be very specific. So one specific thing I think I take from you, documentation. Alan, keep it short. What's one thing that you would like to be able to recommend?
Thank you. I've heard the Honorable Speaker speak about unpacking the Shirika plan. At least I come from an academic institution. We have something coming in September and November. We will extend invitations. That said, my parting shot is this. We have a very good document called the Shirika plan, but several aspects or several things have to happen. There is need for legal clarity and operational capacity. That then means that the Refugees Act may need to be amended and subsidiary legislation to clarify and expand county government's role in refugee management, especially in planning, service delivery, and data sharing, and include provisions for joint intergovernmental refugee management committees under the Refugees Act. And I think looking at that and looking at the crystal ball, counties are no longer now just implementers. They are co-authors of refugee policies, so they should be involved in that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good way to sum it up. Suhail, one word.
Obviously it's a long journey. The list can be very long, but you need to break it down and you need to look at the low-hanging fruits. And the first thing, which is extremely critical, I think, is the constitutional impact assessment by the state law office, if it does that, because many of us keep quoting that 17 to 27 laws have been impacted due to Refugee Act, right? So once you have that, the picture will be clear. And then it's the prerogative of the legislator and the people of the Kenya to deliberate on it and have a deliberate legislation. So whether through one omnibus bill, once those bottlenecks, because there are policy tensions. I think he mentioned while he was, the recent policy tension which came up now, and it's extremely dangerous even for this, when we were talking about Equity Bank, and whatever you are doing, Inco is doing right now, I doubt it will be able to continue. The new law of the AML and CFT, which country was obligated to do under the FATF grey listing, now that law contradicts, because everybody is now funding refugees on the manifest. Okay. But that law now puts the penalties if you are not following the prudential regulations. So these are, some of the so I think the most critical part is the constitutional impact assessment by the state law office. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suhail. So it still comes back to the issue of policy coherence and also looking at that legal clarity and specifically that constitutional impact assessment that needs also to be done. Before I bring in the Deputy Governor as well as also the Commissioner, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the presence of the Speaker of Wajir, who has just joined us. Please, a round of applause for the Speaker of of Wajir, I will say Sodowo, 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 Sodowo. Yes, you can tell that I come from that part of the town. Good. And I'll also then give the floor very quickly to the Deputy Governor to just say one or two words in terms of final conclusion. What's one thing that you would be able to pass along in terms of recommendation? Because all this is leading up to the recommendations that will be packed up as part of the Devolution conference. And then I give the last word to the Commissioner. Thank you.
One word in terms of what we envision as the Turkana County government is long-term investment in the priorities that we have given to develop Turkana and to support the refugees. Meaning, our development partners, the representative of the refugee donor group did allude to the fact that we need to move, we need the government to take lead. We need to see what is practically possible. For us, we've already mapped out all key and viable value chains and identified institutions in our country, including Kenya Industrial Research and Development Institute and Kenya Fisheries Research Institute, to lead the effort towards key value chains. And for us, our investment in terms of how that can be envisioned within the refugee setting is very key. So we appeal to both the national government, county governments, development partners, COG, to critically look at how they can support the efforts that is being coordinated between UNHCR and partners and DRS and us as a county government hosting refugees on a clear financial flow or system that enables the efforts that we are putting into place to move forward seen. So partnerships require those strong institutional capacity, and those institutional capacity can be built through the partnerships that I alluded to earlier. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A clap for the Deputy Governor. Commissioner, you have a bit of a hard task. First of all, there was a question that was asked in terms of looking at the regulations. What next, particularly because that's part of a big part on economic inclusion. If you have any insights on that, and then any parting shot before we bring this to a close.
Sorry. Thank you, Rufus. I can see my intro is actually fully loaded. And it's not fully loaded to the Commissioner alone, because this journey, we must work together. We must combine effort, and we must embrace the strategy of vertical and horizontal consultation as much as possible. I need to say and give assurances that at the moment we are having a team which is working on a draft implementation matrix, because the Shirika plan which we launched is almost 5 months old now. To me, is a blueprint. And as a blueprint, is actually a guiding framework on what we expect in each and every pillar. Now the work starts. How do we move from step one to the next and feeding into each other until we get our end results? It is a document which is a work in progress, and we are hoping to have it presented to the stakeholders for them to appreciate on all the milestones we envision, the activities and the sub-activities, and for a buy-in and validation. And through that process is what now will position the actors. Once we are in agreement with key stakeholders, both the national and county government also taking the center stage of that framework, then we will position each actor their roles and responsibilities. So we are together. I've seen a number of laws, legal frameworks, and I take a bait from my colleague here to also reach out to the Office of the Attorney General. We just need to have that focus on all these laws and how they impact each other, because you cannot take the Refugee Act alone and run away with it. It must be read in totality, under the framework of the Constitution of Kenya, which gives us our pivotal point on how we snowball in the refugee space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for the wonderful panel, starting from Alan from Strathmore. We go to Suhail from UNHCR, Anab from Dadaab, the Deputy Governor of Turkana, Dr. John, as well as also Commissioner. We do appreciate the Commissioner of Department of Refugee Service. Unfortunately, that is the time we have, because we have to still move to another segment, and I can be able to see that I'm being directed. We still have one more very quick. The refugee-led organizations, which are represented here, they do have a memorandum that they just wanted to present to you. They are not going to speak. They just want to make sure that as part of your commitment and as part of your 100 days, part of your entry has a bit of a memo that is coming. So I would invite Jonas, maybe Commissioner, if you can just stand. Unfortunately, brother, I do not have the time, because that's all the time, and we've actually gone overboard for this panel. So apologies, but feel free to reach out to any of the panelists in terms of the questions that you have. Welcome. I'm not going to allow you to speak. You're just actually literally just giving it to the Commissioner. I will get out of the way, and then right, you can encourage him by a clap. So that is just to say that a couple of the things that also they have a couple of memoranda of issues that they need you to be able to look at in your first 100 days or even 50 days, that you can then be able to call them back at a later time. So with that, I think I will just want to be able to, okay, let's clap for Mr. Jonas, is one of the leaders within the refugee-led organization. Okay, you will also give to the speakers. That's very much okay. I think we have the speaker of Garissa, as well as also the speaker of Turkana. And then now I'll invite the panelists to just do, it's okay, to just do a group photo here, and then we will be able to conclude the panel.
As they take the photo, I would like to invite the partners we organized this with. RCK, Mr. Barrett, Reds, Patience, IRC, Ms. Bosire, Inkomoko, who am I missing? Sorry? Pamoja Trust, RCT, yes. Please come on board. Kenya Red Cross, please be quick, please. Yeah, and I also want to recognize that we do have the State Department of Urban Planning, Plan Daido, Karibu sana, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much. We can now take our seats and let us have the vote of thanks from our patients. Kindly join me here, or don't go back to your seat.
Thank you very much, Gronia. What a panel. Thank you once again for such a thoughtful and honest exchange this afternoon. So allow me these final minutes. I will not take more than 2 minutes of your time, but I just want to reflect very briefly on some of the key points that have emerged from the rich discussion today. And what we've had is a collective recognition that the Kenya government has led the way with regards to refugee response towards inclusion. But as distinguished speakers have said very clearly here, is that we must move away from parallel service delivery. And from decades of this type of parallel service delivery, we have seen that that model does not work. And for far too long, humanitarian systems have operated separately from government systems for citizens. But the path forward lies in strengthening and resourcing national and county systems. We have also had the strong call for effective coordination between national and county governments. Counties hosting refugees must have a decisive role and a decisive voice in how policies are shaped, how budgets are allocated, and how services are delivered. And this requires a clear intergovernmental framework to align priorities, responsibilities, and reduce fragmentation. Another point raised is the need to be honest about the limits of the current model. Long-term humanitarian dependency is financially and operationally unsustainable. And so if we must seek greater efficiencies, we need to blend humanitarian and development financing, private sector investments that strengthen resilience and self-reliance, and as Equity Bank has proven, this can be done. And many of you have reminded us that the momentum must not be lost. The high-level commitments we make in forums such as this must translate into practical, time-bound, and tractable actions. And critically, we have heard that local ownership and meaningful community leadership must shape priorities. So I think my concluding remark here is, if we can align behind one plan and strengthen one system and commit to one vision rooted in Kenya's leadership, we will not only transform refugee hosting in Kenya, but also set a model, not only for Kenya, but a model for the region. And so with those remarks, please welcome me, join me in thanking Rufus and the wonderful panel. I think they've done such an amazing job. And I know now I'm standing between you and lunch, so I would like to stop there. Thank you very much for coming to this side event.